May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, doing our bit to help preserve the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths cross his, and anything else that comes to mind. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. Oh, I have an important announcement to make. Bum. Today's podcast begins our 4th year of Cuke Audio Podcast. Well, it's been great. I enjoy it, and I look forward to doing more. I wish I could do more. Yeah, especially with guests. I'd like to do other types of guests, too. I'd like to do more life in Bali. I'd really like to do... I've really thought a lot about doing a series called Doomer Radio, basically about the state of the climate, threat of nuclear war, and that sort of thing. But I don't know. Plenty of people on that. And the stuff I do, there are fewer involved in it. Oh, and I'd really like to get back to editing the Shunryu Suzuki audio. I haven't done that for a little while. It's on hold because, of different stuff I'm trying to get done and just trying to concentrate. And I don't know, it seems endless. And that seems more important than what I'm doing to me, really. So I might just start doing it again and, do a certain amount every day. And do a certain amount of the other stuff every day. I'm not very good at that sort of disciplined scheduling. I tend to just work compulsively from one thing and then the other thing. Well, I've got to get this done. But we'll see. So anyway, we'll see what's happening in the future. Looking forward to season 4 of these podcasts. So today we have a guest, Elaine Maisner. Elaine was a student at the San Francisco Zen Center, and she married Richard Chaffee, who was one of our very first podcast guests, talking mainly about Soto Zen stuff, because he's a Soto Zen scholar, really neat guy. So I want to bring him back into a more general one. So they went out to the East Coast and ended up in North Carolina, and Elaine has worked for 28 years for the University of North Carolina Press, and she just retired from there last year. There's a nice little article on her retirement from the University of North Carolina Press blog, and I'll put a link to it on Cuke.com. If you go to the podcast page, and it'll be linked to from there. There'll be a picture of her and a little blurb about her, and we'll include that there. Some good photos, too. And she worked for 7 years before that with the University Press. She'll tell you which one. Might have been Yale. I forget now. Anyway, so look, she's going to tell you about all that, about her experiences at Zen Center and wherever else our conversation leads. So listen, after our pause to meditate, we'll give Elaine a call. So when you hear the bell, if you're of such a mind, hit pause and meditate or whatever for as long as you wish. And when you're ready to come back, hit unpause, and we'll be here to hit the bell to end the meditation or whatever, and we'll give Elaine Maisner a call.
Hello.
Hello, Elaine.
Hi, David Chadwick. How are you?
I'm just fine, Elaine Maisner. How you doing?
I'm okay.
Yeah.
Nice to hear your voice.
Yeah, good to hear yours too. Yeah. So, hey, Elaine, what are you up to now?
Well, I retired on April Fool's Day in 22 from a long career in university press publishing. I started out with a couple of jobs in San Francisco publishing when I very soon after came to Zen Center. I remember taking my fried boots off in the hallway and going into the Zendo.
Going into the hallway
the
and Zendo at the city center in San Francisco.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, that's a very clear memory, and it kind of was a passage in a way, in many ways. But, and then I've just retired after, about 28 years at University of North Carolina Press, I acquired books, building lists, and it's very fresh for me, of course. I still have a lot of good friends who were my authors, and developing these list areas in religious studies, which they hadn't had before. And Latin American and Caribbean studies, which I had not had any experience of, but was asked to take that on, and I quickly came to really love that, learn a lot about Brazil and Mexico and Chile and all kinds of places. Have you ever been to Latin America?
Yeah, I lived in Mexico for over a year when I was, maybe I went there when I was 19 or just turning 20.
Wow.
And I've been back a little bit for over a month once. Yeah, love it.
Do you speak Spanish?
I spoke. I spoke enough to get by. Cool. I would talk to people. I'd go out and walk around town and talk to people. I loved Argentina. That was nice. Brazil, Peru. But did you get down there?
So I haven't spent much time there. I did go to Mexico once for one of the Latin American Studies Association conventions. I went to Guadalajara. And I've been to, Puerto Rico, which is part of the United States, of course, and Cuba for 10 days. The press paid for me to go down because I developed a very big Cuban studies list as well within my Latin American and Caribbean studies. And that was really interesting. That was in when was that? 86. No, not what am I talking about? I think that was like in 2000, let's see, 1898. I think that was like around 2002 or something like that. And the press paid for it. It was a big historical meeting there of Caribbean historians, so that was part of that. When you could still get permission to travel there for scholarly reasons. And then the other, and the other list I did was I'm not a Southerner. You're from Texas, right? Original?
Fort Worth, yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, Fort Worth.
Fort Worth, okay. Yeah, okay. Well, I guess you're sort of a Southerner.
Nope, that's Southwest.
But, no.
Southwest.
Oh, okay, all right.
The South starts at Dallas next door.
Oh, okay. I mean, I knew part of Texas was, in spirit anyway, some ways. But I was from New Jersey originally and then lived in California and Japan and lots of other places. But
Japan?
Never thought we'd end up.
Did you say Japan?
Yeah, we lived. Yeah.
Well,
we lived there for 3 years.
Why?
It was when Richard was doing his research for his dissertation. So we had moved, after we got married in 1985, we moved from Zen Center to New Haven, where he started graduate school at Yale. And then, and then about 4 years in, he had to do his research for his dissertation on Japanese Buddhism. So we moved to Japan for 3 years. And my daughter was born there in 1990.
Oh.
Zena.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. And where did you live, in Tokyo?
Yes.
Yeah. Japan's a good place to have a baby. That's what I think.
I think it was altogether. Was your kid Kelly? Was he born in Japan?
No, Clay. Kelly was born at Green Gulch. Clay was born in Japan at a birthing center with midwives. It was great.
Wow. What year was that?
91.
91. Okay.
What year was Zena born?
1990. So very close.
Oh my God! You were there at the same time. Wow.
Seems like it. I didn't realize you were there, but I wrote an article about it for the English language newspaper about having a baby in Japan. And it was good. It was good all around. Different in some ways and better in some ways, maybe. But anyway, it was what it was. It was great. And it was fun having a baby there for 2 years before we moved back to New Haven. And Richard, finished his dissertation and then went on the job market. And then we decided to move to North Carolina because that was the best job offer he got. So he worked at North Carolina State University, and then 6 years later got an offer from Duke, which is where he's been now for over, I think 20 years. And I immediately started working at UNC Press because we had a lot of connections between Yale University Press, where I was working and loved it, and then UNC Press. And I could tell you about my trajectory in publishing, but I ended up, like I said, acquiring these lists, building lists. That's what scholarly publishing, and most publishing is all about, the list. What kind of list are you building? And then I also did food studies. So in some way, and a lot of it was related to Southern culture, but we broadened it out after a while. But you see, what's so interesting is that so much of my experience over the years, and I'm sure you've found this, and probably most people have, even if you think it's unconnected, you do bring a lot of your earlier interests into your development later on, because I proposed to the press that we do a religious studies list because I was a practitioner, and not that when you do scholarly publishing about religion, it's supposed to be ruled by scholarly academic standards. You're not promoting a religion or something like that. But I did know enough about religion, also having a husband who was a graduate student in religion, to propose it and then developed it. And it really became one of the foremost lists in religious studies of all university presses, as was our Latin American and Caribbean studies.
Oh, neat.
The food studies was really, really interesting. I brought so much of my knowledge, practical knowledge, into that. So I worked with a lot of chefs and writers about food. We did all kinds of books about food.
You mean chefs who wrote books?
Exactly.
That's supposed to be the biggest, the most productive area of publishing is cookbooks.
They can be, I think, in terms of money, but
until the money,
you have to
what?
hit it right. Well, I mean, they could be very popular and sell a lot of copies, but they can also fall flat. Cookbooks.
Well, they have a lot of competition.
And also some people. Exactly. Yeah.
You said you were a practitioner. Tell me about that. What were you practicing?
Zen Buddhism.
Oh.
That's what I meant. I was a practitioner of a kind of religion, so I had a kind of compassion for understanding religious practice and why, religious traditions. So I was able to draw on that as I started moving in scholarly circles and signing up books about religious traditions. Yeah, so that's what I meant.
Well, tell me about your
which is where
Zen
I
Buddhist
met you,
practice
obviously.
in North Carolina.
Am I doing Buddhist practice?
No, you said you were a practitioner. So.
No, I was referring back to. What? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, you were a practitioner in North Carolina.
Yeah. Ever since I started at Zen Center in 1975, at the end of 75, I've been a Buddhist practitioner.
Yeah. Well, what took you to Zen Center? Where did you? What's your? If you look back at your life, is there a place where you had to, at some point, where you'd go, well, I'm not satisfied with what I am being told about life, or what's it all about, and got curious and wanted to look into it, or something. There's sort of like the spark that develops the way-seeking mind.
Yeah, I think that I wasn't satisfied with, let's see, my family was Jewish, and I feel culturally, ethnically Jewish, but the ideas, and this is shallow on my part maybe, but it didn't, it wasn't speaking to me. And I think what brought me to, I moved to San Francisco without knowing the Zen Center was there, but I had done a little bit of meditation, and I was drawn to it at the end of college, just with some friends who told me about it. And then when I graduated from college, I was living in New Jersey, back home in New Jersey, and I went to Philip Kaplo's center in Rochester, the Rochester Zen Center, and I did a weekend there.
Uh-huh.
And it was, and it, how it just felt so, I felt so connected to it. I felt like this is really interesting and speaking to me. And I remember he was there and he gave Zazen, he gave a short lecture after somebody else did Zazen instruction. It was a big Zendo, and they had a lot of people there for the weekend. And he gave a talk, and I remember asking him a question.
Do you remember what you asked him?
Yeah.
What was it?
I said, if there's no self, how can you see your face before it was born, before you were born, or something like that?
Good question.
And he gave me some good answer, which I don't remember.
Uh-huh.
And then they let us out for lunch. And another thing that struck me, and these are very strong impressions still, was that they had a buffet of lunch on the tables that we walked along and took. I've never seen cottage cheese that looked so vibrant or striking before in my life. And
You've never seen what? Seen what?
Cottage cheese in a bowl. And I think it's because my senses were somewhat, heightened from sitting for a while.
So the cottage cheese was vibrant. That's terrific.
Yeah.
That's great.
And then I worked, made some money, and then I moved to San Francisco. I left my dear parents, with whom I've always been very close. They're both gone now, but I struck out to San Francisco. In fact, I went by train. I remember my dad took me to New York, which was pretty close to where I grew up, and I got on the Empire Builder, Amtrak, and I'd never seen him cry, but he was crying a little bit, and I left. I know. And then I changed to the California Zephyr in Chicago, and that took me, I was reading Henry Miller. See, because the Beats was, as you probably know, I mean, I'd like to know if this affected you, but that whole ethos had affected me, and it was like it wasn't the very beginning of the 60s, but it was this absolutely countercultural moment, and I read, actually, Henry Miller he was pretty early on, but the Beats had been into reading him, and I liked reading him all the way through Truckee, California. I remember stopping there briefly, and that's where my daughter lives now.
That's funny.
To Oakland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. You said your daughter lives in Truckee, and then you said something about Oakland?
And then the train went through Truckee and then the last stop, I think, was Oakland.
Oh, that sounds like such a great train ride. I don't want to do it now.
Yeah.
Wow.
You could. It's still
going. I know, and senior citizens
schedule.
Can get a great price.
Yeah. Really?
Yes. Yeah. You can get terrific tickets. Love trains.
Oh, good.
So you landed in Oakland. What'd you do?
Well, the only person I knew in the area was my cousin, Diane, and she lived in San Francisco, and she said I could stay with her for a few days. So I took public transport, I guess, from Oakland to her place in San Francisco, which I think it might have been, I don't really remember where that was. I stayed with her for about a week. Oh my God, and I got jobs. I had 3 jobs at once. It was all part-time, and I quickly moved from her place.
So after a week, where did you move? Where did you move?
To Noe Valley, Sanchez Street.
Oh, that's good.
To a Victorian on Sanchez. Yeah, right between. Yeah, it was great. And now those houses probably cost so much money.
Yeah.
So that was 75. No, that was 70. Yeah, 75. Very towards the end, and I moved into a house where everyone was renting a room. There were about 5 of us, and the rooms were, I was told, and I believe it, were painted to resemble a hamburger. So one room was painted like hamburger red, another one was like yellow brown for the bun, another one was mustard color, another one was yellow green for lettuce, and another one was.
That's funny. That's really funny.
Ketchup colored. Yeah, and that was my home base, and one of the women who was in the house, Becky, she was really involved with Est, Werner Erhard. You remember that?
Yeah, and this is 75?
Yeah.
Oh, certainly I remember Werner Erhard.
So I got a job in Maiden Lane in the Frank Lloyd Wright building. Do you know that little building? It's a beautiful little building.
Oh, yeah, that's a building designed by Frank Lloyd Wright.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know quite when I realized that.
Yeah, it's on a little street downtown San Francisco. I can't remember. It's
Yeah,
sort of
Maiden
near
Lane.
Chinatown
Maiden
somewhere.
No, it's right off the square, like the Union Square.
Oh,
it's
that
called
right?
Maiden Lane. Maiden Lane is the street, yeah.
Oh.
And it was just a little boutique, and I was like responsible for prepping the clothes and ironing and getting them out ready to go out front. It was crazy. And then I was always very, very concerned about supporting myself, obviously. So and then I got another job in a bakery all the way across town in Noe Valley. So I had to go back and forth between these jobs.
Which bakery?
And then I don't remember the name of it.
Mm-hmm.
It was like being in the front, not baking. I don't remember, but I had a very good. One of my best friends in San Francisco was someone I had known very briefly from college at Oberlin, and I just ran into her by chance walking in Golden Gate Park. And she became a really good friend of mine, and she's the one who told me. She was like a tour guide. She was always traveling around. I have a very long, fantastic history with her. In fact, after I was ordained, I married her and her current husband, her now husband. But she said, "Oh, Elaine, I've just been to this really cool building. It's Zen Center. It's on Page Street. You should go." So that was, so I went. I was interested. I had done a little bit, as you say, but I didn't even know about Zen Center, really. And I went there, and then that was it. I was just that was my place. I was working. Later on, I got a couple of kind of really interesting entry-level jobs in publishing at Harcourt Brace Advantage and then Miller Freeman Publications. I worked at each place for 1 year. Those were down on Polk Street, actually.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, one of the windows at HBJ overlooked a Carol Doda sign.
Wait a minute, Polk Street, Carol Doda. They're not near.
The stripper.
Yeah. You said Polk Street?
Polk, P-O-L-K.
Yeah.
It overlooked, this huge, like, neon sign.
Huh. Oh, really?
Which, was lit up. Her memory glands were all lit up.
Yeah, I remember it. Tommy Dorsey worked there.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
He was the doorman, or not the doorman. He was like the host inside.
Oh, my God. That's amazing. I wish I had met him then, but yeah, well, so I worked for a little while longer. Like I said, I went to the Zendo, took public transportation to go to 530 Zazen, and then, you know how it is, because I know it happened to you. I went all in, and then I moved into the building, and I worked for Zen Center.
What'd you do?
And I think you know a little bit about me. Well, my first job was I was working on the like the construction crew, not heavy construction, but repair work
on the building,
handy person work. I think on the building and on other properties that Zen Center.
Oh, like 340
control.
Next door.
Yeah, maybe and Tussahara Bakery, because I was paired up with Terry Gregg.
No
That's
kidding.
how I met him.
No kidding.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
And sometime I want to talk to you more about him, but not right now.
Oh, I can tell you a lot about him.
Good. Yeah, so that's that was my first job there, and I did that for maybe under a year, and then I moved into the building, and then
wow, you mean you had a paying job from Zen Center while you were sitting in 1975. They weren't paying much.
No, it wasn't at all. No.
Wow.
In fact, I just don't quite remember if I was still working outside then or not, but yeah, in 70, I think it was 77. Well, 76, I was working. I was at Zen Center, but I was still not living in the building. I think I moved into the building in September of 77.
Uh-huh.
And then I quickly was working. Then I worked at the bakery for quite a couple of years, which was really my
77 bakery.
Yeah.
The manager, who was running the bakery then?
Peter Overton.
Right.
We called him Maha Overton. Yeah, and that was with Tony Patchell was the oven man.
Yeah.
I was the finisher. And in fact, Tony was hilarious because someone once came into the back looking for me, and they said, "Can I see Elaine?" He said, "Oh, she's in the back. She's the one covered in chocolate icing with walnuts hanging off of her."
That's great. Huh. Yeah, wonderful. Tassara Bakery. Yeah.
Yeah, Doug Volkemer was there. Dan Howe, who now lives, he and Doug were mixers. Dan and Eleanor Howe live in Chapel Hill, and we're good friends with them.
Yeah. So.
And Pat, of course, is here. Yeah.
Pat who?
Pat Phelan.
Yes.
She started at Zen. You remember her? She started.
Very well.
She's done a great job with the Chapel Hill Zen Center.
Yeah, indeed. So there you were at Zen Center in 77. Well, what was? Yeah, tell me more about it.
Yeah, hard work, and sitting, of course, and and then I moved into the building, and I was very, very all in, and I loved it, and I still feel like it's my home, my home temple, and my practice home, and I have been back a few times and been to San Francisco, to Tassajara, but it was, similar, I'm sure. I started after I worked at at Tassajara Bread Bakery. Let's see. I actually have all this written down because I kept track of it myself for some strange reason. So I can give you all the details. But I worked at the bakery through August 78. And then I went to Tassajara.
Oh.
Which was wonderful. Yeah. Went to Tassajara in September 78 through August 79. Then they kind of called me back to work, asked me to work at Greens. I was ordained as a priest in 1980. So, so when I came, go ahead.
So you were ordained as a priest in 1980. You had a lay ordination before that?
I had, yes.
And when did you start working at Greens?
September 79.
I was there then. I was the host.
Yes, you were there. I know. I know you were.
That's great. I thought I remembered you at Greens. And what'd you do there? What'd you do?
I was a cook. I was
working with Deborah Madison.
Jim Phelan and I were the kind of sous chefs, if you recall. And then I adored learning from Deborah Madison.
Oh, that's good.
It's lasted my whole life, and that became extreme. And of course, I met Richard Jaffe, my husband. We were married in '85 at Greens and at Zen Center. So we work together. If you work in the kitchen with somebody, I think you get to know them pretty well in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Wow. And you were, wait a minute, how long were you at Greens till when?
I was there from, let's see, I was there for 2 years. I worked there from September 79 to August 81.
So what'd you do then?
Yeah, cooking. Wait, before I go on, I went back to Tassajara, and I was there for 3 years after that. I became guest manager, and I was the director. I was the director of Zen Mountain Center when the whole thing with Richard Baker blew up. And in fact, I drove him out of, I was in the car when we drove him out of Tassajara where he was when the board called him to account and he had to come back to the city.
Oh, yeah. So you were there, you were there when when there was that event with Thich Nhat Hanh and all those people?
I met Thich Nhat Hanh. Yeah, he was there when I was there. Yep.
Yeah, that weekend or something, what was it? It was some sort of special event, is what triggered the whole thing, because he had a weekend affair that was sort of billed as a long-term thing, but it wasn't. It was something that happened that weekend. And, that.
You mean like the shoes outside the door thing? Event?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I remember Thich Nhat Hanh visiting the Tassajara, and I was, I think, the guest manager then, and I could have been the Tenzo. I think I was the Tenzo. I'm not sure, but I had a lot of kitchen. Yeah, the head cook, right. And I remember that Thich Nhat Hanh made a very big impression on a lot of people, and he counseled people to slow down and be mindful. And all of us staff in the kitchen could have said no, because some of the kitchen people slowed down and they were cutting onions like one slice a minute. You can imagine how that was.
Oh, I can remember working at Greens, going up to a guy that had come there from the city center, like a new guest student or something, who was sitting there, going up to him and saying, oh, look, you might have some idea that Zen is being slow and careful, but you're working in a restaurant now, and you should do everything as fast as you can while still being efficient. And then let your mind be slow, but not your action.
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, that's good that you did that. You saved somebody else from having to tell them.
Oh, yeah.
And you were the host, but you noticed, I guess.
Yeah. I just sort
cool.
of ran
that's
the floor.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. There were so many cool people there. Yeah. There's a guy who's a pretty famous writer now, Steve, I can't remember his name. He wrote a book about neurodifference. I'm forgetting his last name.
About what difference?
Neurodivergent people. Neurodivergent people.
Really?
People who have, autism and.
He was a student or a guest?
Yeah. He was a student. I can tell you in a second. Really cool guy.
Oh, you took notes?
No, I think I can. Steve Silberman.
Oh, yeah.
Him?
Yeah.
The server.
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now he's a pretty well-known author and a really good guy. He's married to a man. He's very, when we knew him in San Francisco, at Greens, he was just a seeker, or just so young and just like the rest of us, and trying to explore. And that's what, anyway, so that's, One other, can I tell you one other funny story about the bakery?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I was a finisher, so that means finishing, decorating cakes and everything. And I had one person who was on my team named Mitch.
Yeah, Mitch Durrell.
No, it wasn't Mitch Durrell. It was another Mitch with red hair. Young guy, really young. I can't remember. He's the sweetest guy, but he'd cut like a layer cake in half, and then, it's the upper half is going to go back on top. And he would spread the icing in the middle layer, icing for the layer cake. And he would spend like half an hour making it perfectly smooth, the way you would if you were doing the top of the cake. And I said, Mitch, why are you doing that? You're going to cover it up. Just slap it on and cover it up. You don't need to smooth it out like that. I thought that was really funny. But I also remember Carol Atherton. We all brought she told me, she gave me some good feedback once. She worked in the bakery too. And she told me I was really too bossy and like annoying.
Oh.
I remember being really feeling really hurt. But she was right.
Oh.
And that's something that I learned at Zen Center. I learned how to say thank you, like all the time. And I learned to be tried to be less, bossy and demanding of people.
Oh. Learn to say thank you all the time. That's wonderful.
Yeah, it was so true that we said thank you to each other all the time. Don't you remember?
That's a really good thing to point out. No, I've never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
That's neat.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very good thing to say. I won't forget that.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. So that's something I brought, through my work life later on.
Yeah.
Trying to be really, basically kind to all the people I worked with. And but it's not a simple thing because, it's also very competitive sometimes, the work that I was doing with people inside my own organization, and then again with other presses. But
with other what?
Not in a bad way.
With other what?
Publishers.
Oh, you're publishing. I was still in the bakery.
Yeah, in publishing.
Oh.
No. So then I was at Zen. Yeah, then Richard left Greens to go to his first time at Tassajara, and we were together by then. So I also got to go in 81, and I stayed for 3 years, like I said, and I had lots of positions: Tenzo, guest cook, guest manager, and Jisha for Baker Roshi, and then I became the director the year we escorted him out.
Well, if you drove him out, you went to that board meeting.
I did not go to the board meeting. I wasn't on the board, but we drove him. Wait a
minute. The director of Tassajara wasn't on the board?
No.
Was when I was director. I was director in 76. I was on the board.
Interesting.
Huh.
Either they changed it or they didn't want me to be on the board. I don't know.
No, they changed it, obviously, because the board automatically included all three directors back when I was. Huh. Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Interesting, yeah. We drove him to Dramesburg, and then that's where I stopped, and then he continued up to San Francisco.
In his what was that car he had?
I don't know.
Wow, it was a big
BMW?
issue. It was
BMW?
one of the issues.
I know.
Yeah,
I know. It was a BMW, though.
Yeah, it was a BMW, and it was a $35,000 BMW, and he finally came to realize that was a mistake. Yvonne had tried to talk him out of buying it. And he said Yvonne Rand had tried to talk him out of buying it, and he said, "Well, I'm in the car, about a quarter of my time, and it's like the safest car." And she did research and showed that the $17,000 BMW was just as safe. And but he really had his eyes on it, and later came to realize that that was a mistake. People were really, some people were really offended at it. And that's when that sort of, that's when the imperial abbotship came to an end over that. But
that's right.
Yeah.
And contrast that with when I was working at Greens, and you know how hard we worked.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And then went home and did Zazen or whatever. But I asked for, I got a small stipend, and I asked the board, could I buy a pair of work shoes? Mine are all worn out.
You asked the board of Zen Center if you could buy some work shoes?
Yes. I don't know why I had to do that, but that's what I was told to do.
That's insane.
I had so little money that I didn't want to take the shoe money out of that. And they said, "Oh, we'll consider it." And they turned me down. And I won't say who was in charge at that time. I think that person feels very badly now. Yeah.
Yeah. They feel badly? You mean they don't have a sense of touch? Anyway, pardon me.
No, that's okay.
When I became the host, they bought me, see, I never wore anything but sandals, like flip-flops.
I remember. So I remember that.
I said I would buy some dress Birkenstocks. So we got dress Birkenstocks, sandal with socks. They wanted
you to enclose your toes.
Yeah.
Close your toes.
And the Greens bought it. And Greens bought me bought me shirts to wear, nice shirts, so I wouldn't be in a t-shirt or whatever I was always wearing. And that's really crazy, going to the board for a purchase for Greens. But that was part of the learning curve of the institution. So listen, you got ordained as lay. You were in Zen Center. Can you tell me anything about teaching? Like, you arrived at this place. I mean, when you mentioned Rochester, you mentioned Philip Kapleau. Right. But you came to Zen Center. What was there in terms of Zen and teaching?
My teachers. Who did I look to for being my teacher, you mean? Yeah. Well, I can tell you exactly. Ed Brown was a senior. Richard Baker didn't let anybody become a full-fledged teacher for as long as I was there, but the senior students were Lou Richmond, Ed Brown, and Reb Anderson. And I worked with, I had my very first Zazen instruction with Ed Brown, and it was great, actually. And I then, Reb was one of my teachers, but Richard Baker was my main teacher. Yeah. So he was my teacher.
How was that?
It was good. It was good. I mean, it was fine. It was fine. He was really, really smart. He, I think I learned a lot. I learned a lot from him, with him, I should say. I never looked to him for him to be my father, and I didn't want him to be my boyfriend. I had those things. I didn't, so I was not as vulnerable perhaps as some people were. I definitely could see how he could have taken advantage of people.
I take out some names here. They're on Cute.com and elsewhere, but I thought, why repeat them? What people, he didn't, I didn't see him doing that. He had one girlfriend that I know of. That went on for 6 years.
But he had affairs with other people too, other students.
Who?
Well, you know some of them. Yvonne.
Well,
Lucy.
no, wait a minute. He and Yvonne were together when they were students.
Okay, so that was okay. Okay. Well,
that's the one.
Oh, that's the one. But then, okay. Or what about?
Wasn't a student. She was part of his ivory tower, and that was a weekend affair.
Okay.
Now I don't know anything, but and he and were an item for years. She and he have been in touch recently. She wrote a thing that's on Cute.com saying she wishes people would stop, I don't know exactly how she said it, calling her some victim or something.
Like pitying her.
Yeah. And she really didn't like it where people wanted her to be mad and condemn him and all that. It was just something that happened. Yeah. And it wasn't a secret within his family. And it was uncool, but look, if you go on Cute.com and look at shoes outside the door, I have statements from very strong feminist Zen Center women saying that he was never anything but appropriate with them. And what shoes outside the door gave an impression, and I talked to Michael Downing about this, that he was having sex with a lot of students. He wasn't. And the New York Times Review of Books came out with a review that said women were coming to Zen Center and being assigned to be his concubine. And I wrote them a letter and saying, that's not true. And they didn't publish it. And, I established that I knew things about Zen Center and written a biography of Suzuki.
Yeah. Did you say the New York Times or the New York Review of Books? I didn't catch that.
New York, well, I might have said, I get names wrong all the time. I think it was New York Review of Books, right?
Okay.
And Anyway, that was, he got out of hand and everything. Things get out of balance.
I could, there was a lot of out of balance stuff, and I could see how he could be inappropriate. I could see something that happened once, but I mean, in general, but for myself, it was a good learning. Really, it really worked. But when the whole thing blew up, also, it wasn't like I had thought he was so incredible. I knew he was human. It wasn't like, oh my God.
Yeah, it wasn't all about. It wasn't all about that weekend affair. It was about power, a lot of it, and just he had all the cards, and I think the organization that he had really been responsible for building had become. He made a strong organization that at some point said. This needs to have a different type of balance, and he couldn't accept that, and so he left. He was not told to leave.
Mm-hmm. He was a little,
And
he was a little selfish, if you had it, like greedy, and maybe a little deluded.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he
What
said
have you been in touch with
recently
him?
that he'd screwed all that up, but he's been going strong. He's got a great
Huh.
group now in Germany, and the place in Colorado, and he's still teaching. And that German group is great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how so?
Well,
How is it? Have you been there?
oh yeah, I've spent time there. It's wonderful. It's the place I'm most comfortable in terms of Zen being.
Oh. Oh, wow.
Well, I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
I like the groups like you have with Pat that are non-residential. I think that's that's a much safer and it's a more workable way to do it. So anyway, well, that's interesting. And
Yeah.
you had a relationship with
Okay.
Ed. He's still teaching. And so is
Well,
Reb.
yeah, the
And
first,
and Lou's
I
retired,
remember,
but he's.
oh,
I was just saying Lou's going
yeah.
strong. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, and then also I would consider Leslie. I got to be very close with her, and Linda Ruth was also very, very good to learn with. Linda Ruth, and I was good friends with Nancy Schrader, who, I had a lot of what would you say, contemporaries. We were kind of in the practice together, had the same, we were sort of senpai, same level collaborators.
Yeah.
It was really, really great. But I was going to say I remember my very first Zazen instruction with Ed, and and Baker Roshi should have been more open-handed. That was the problem. He was too. I think he didn't let people grow the way they should, and he didn't want. It was about power. He didn't want to do transmission, whereas in Japan, that's just another step. It's not like a big deal.
Yeah.
Like the way that he made it so outlandishly like mystical or something, and that's not right. That I think perverted things a little bit, maybe perverted the teaching, the understanding. Yeah, I think that was a problem. But anyway, so that would be one big problem. And he didn't come on time for things. So anyway,
yeah.
But I had great interactions with him, talking about the Dharma, understanding the Dharma together, and that is fundamental to me and my development as a Zen student, and always will be. And I hope, and I continue with it, even though I haven't been doing formal Zen practice. I will at some point again, especially now that I have more time, and so on. But with Ed, I went in and I said, and the other thing that brought me to Zen Center was, I think all of us had some kind of pain in our lives. Something was wrong. There was a problem. So we were, I think, responding to the way Buddhists talk about pain and suffering, all of us. And that was another reason that it felt really good. But that's not related. I sat down with Ed and I said, I can't stop my mind from thinking. And his response was, so?
Yes,
that was great. That was great.
Yeah. So Ed tells a story, I think it's Ed, where he said someone said that to Suzuki Roshi, and it could have been him. I can't remember now. And Suzuki said, "What? Is there something wrong with thinking?"
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Yeah.
Did you know that Ed is not now allowed to speak at Zen Center?
Oh, yes. Is that still going on?
Well, it is
I
now.
saw
It'll change. You know, he's sort of, you know, he's, you know, several times he said things that upset people, and it would be a good case of being, you know, institutions have become so woke conscious that they don't want to offend anybody. And so
yeah,
you know.
I know. He told Richard and me, I think he was passing through this area and told us all about it. He'd given a lecture and you know, referred to gender fluidity somewhat flippantly. And I think, isn't that what happened? So some people got upset about that.
Yeah, one person.
Something like that.
And wrote a letter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And well, he just said that the restrooms were, he didn't understand. You can talk to, you know, you can talk to the people running the thing or something back about that. Yeah, he said a few things in that lecture, but they were rather harmless. And I just think, wow, if you want a church where everybody can feel safe, but a church that doesn't rock your boat, boy, that's not my idea of it. Anyway, I think all the people are good and they're all sincere and they've got, you know, poor Zen Center has to worry about being sued and, you know, you're running an organization, you want everything to be smooth. Anyway, yeah, but he's doing good. Zen Center's doing good, and that'll all be something in the past. And
well,
you know,
I think but it's important to look at it because you know how it is, because the majority tends to see things from their own perspective, whereas the person who's in the minority is constantly being pushed around by that perspective. And
right,
you know.
Right. And I see it as a matter of balance again. You want to shift things so that the people who feel, you know, who've felt uncomfortable or disenfranchised or there were social taboos or whatever against them, as that opens up, they want things to be right. It's an adjustment. You know, it's like society adjusting. You know, so people get banged up on one end and the other end. Right. Yeah. I think Zen Center overall has been, through the years, has been extremely accepting of people and their differences. I know gay people who early on liked going to Zen Center because they felt it didn't matter then. Nobody cared, you know.
I agree.
I do know gay people that didn't come out when they were at Zen Center in the 70s because they still felt that it would, make people uncomfortable. You know, they
Oh.
didn't feel comfortable about that, but other people did.
Mm-hmm.
Good Lord, Isan
Yes.
was
Right.
certainly he was unconcerned about things like
Yeah,
that.
he was. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And of course, being in San Francisco is much more forward that way with
Oh
who
yeah.
came to Zen Center, and it was so, it was much more accepted. But it's interesting. There were some people at Zen Center who did not want to come out, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I was talking to one recently.
Or maybe yeah. Okay.
Uh,
yeah.
But
It's true.
So you were talking about pain and suffering, this and that. Your trajectory at Zen Center, I see the way I see it now. The image I have is you were pretty together when you arrived, and you were a very sincere student who didn't have a lot of conflicting stuff going on in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
You were pretty focused,
Mm-hmm.
and you were very capable, and you got lay ordained and then priest ordained rather quickly, and got jobs of responsibility rather quickly. And you got along with people. Everybody liked you. And maybe you were too bossy at one time or not. I can't remember that. But when you told me that, when you said that, you were told that, I thought, oh, good. Because some people would get, so passive. There, you want people to rouse themselves.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know. Yeah, no, I don't think I ever had that problem.
Yeah.
But I think what I was referring to was my mom had severe depression, and I know it affected my dad's life in a very, it was hard. So I feel like that sadness was what I was carrying with me.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
That's what it was.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
But they were, at the same time, I can easily say they were wonderful parents. They were fantastic people. They were survivors, my mom. And in fact, she moved from New Jersey to North Carolina after my dad died to be near us. So I was able to spend tons of time with her through good and bad times. But I was her person through the end, and she died at 94. So it was a long life and had its ups and downs, but she was really an incredible person. So, yeah.
So, at what point did you left Zen Center in 85?
Yes, that's right.
And
in 85.
Was that why did that happen? 85. That's when I went. That's when I stopped living with Liz and Bolinas. I'd always been half time at Zen Center, but went to Green Gulch for a couple of years. And so what?
Where did you go then? Where did you go?
I was at Green Gulch.
In 85. You moved from Bolinas to Green Gulch?
Yeah, well, I always had a place in Mirror Beach. I had a place at Avon's, a little cabin.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I started living at Green Gulch, and I was there 2 years. And I enjoyed them. They were
2 years.
And Green Gulch was so good to me. But
wow.
You
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, not everybody says that. So what happened? What happened? You got married to Richard in 85, right?
That's right. We got married.
Who performed the marriage ceremony?
April. Reb. We asked Reb to do it. He was after Richard Baker departed. I guess the person I worked with most was Reb.
Mm-hmm.
And so he did our marriage, and Richard too, T.S. Strozer was the Jisha for the ceremony. Were you at our wedding? Do you remember?
Oh, I can't remember. And with you and Richard Jaffe. Where was it?
It was in the 300 Page Street.
And
it was a wonderful, wonderful ceremony. I have beautiful pictures. I have the work list of everybody who pitched in to handle it. And we had a big brunch after the ceremony in the dining room in the courtyard. It was sort of a Jewish sort of bagels and cream cheese and coffee cake and halava.
Oh, wow.
And a big wedding. Yeah. I have a lot of pictures that we had taken. It was April 28th, 1985. And then Richard decided, well, after Baker Roshi left, I was a little bit at loose ends, I guess, in a way. And Richard wanted to go to graduate school to make money doing what he loved, which was studying Buddhism. He wanted he always was very he had a real aptitude for scholarly work and languages and so on and so forth. So in a way, he was looking at Zen Buddhism, having experienced it in the United States, like kind of, what were the roots of it? That's one thing he was doing. So his first book was about marriage, which was as you know. So
what did you say again?
Oh, it was about marriage in Zen Buddhism, and I think you probably
not
know
your marriage. You mean his studies? He did that book. He did a book on
neither monk nor layman. Monk nor layman.
Right.
But the whole point is that our experience of American Zen, kind of helped him think about what he wanted to write about or study for his book. So that's, like, there's connections, and that's, I think practicing a tradition is helped us both in our subsequent professional lives. And influenced us. Let's put it that way. Like he with his studies and me with starting a religion list at my publisher. So in August we moved, let's see, in 1985 we got married. In April we moved back east in August, and I fairly quickly got a job at Yale University Press, which I absolutely loved. And I can tell you more about that sometime, but I remember interviewing, I interviewed with the director of UNC Press, John Ryden, and I had a letter that Bruce Fortin had written for me to use. Because I was translating 10 years at Zen Center on my resume to make it relevant to applying for jobs. And it went well. And my boss was really interested in food. So the fact that I worked at a restaurant, he found very interesting. Of course, I had 2 years of entry-level jobs in publishing. And Bruce Fortin wrote this beautiful letter for me that was really more about character. And it was like, to whom it may concern. I gave it to him, to the director of the press, and he was very impressed by it. I was not the first person they offered the job to. I know I was the second person. The first person not accept the job, so then they asked me, and I just was so happy because I really loved the building that Yale University Press is in, and anyway, so I just totally got absorbed into that, the way I got absorbed into Zen Center. But at least I had more, I I had the experience of being at Zen Center, which has always been, I think for you and for most of us has been a core thing. And I feel like I've continued to practice, not in the formal priest way, but I've continued to practice ever since, for sure.
Mm-hmm. 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 So, yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
But now, and so you in August of '85, you went to New Haven, right? And when
Correct.
did you go to Japan?
We went to Japan 4 years later in August '89. So I started at Yale University Press, November '85, and then in summer '89 we moved to Japan because Richard got a Fulbright and he went to do research on his dissertation topic. Yeah. And that means you do original research and original sources and all of that. So we stayed in Japan for 3 years. Yeah. He usually used to stay for 2 years on the Fulbright, but he got extra funding to do 1 year of Japanese language study at the beginning. So we stayed through June '92.
Yeah. I really respect how thoroughly he did everything, and that's really great. What did you do in Japan? How did you find it?
I was doing more editing for Tokyo University Press. I was working doing English language manuscripts. Yep. I remember I did an anthropology book on chimpanzees. So these were editing jobs, copy editing.
And were they books written in English by Japanese?
Great question. For the most part, some were, but for the most part, they were English language speakers, scholars who lived in Japan. For the most part.
I had some involvement with English written by Japanese because there's an enormous amount of academic, scientific, medical publishing in Japan done in English.
Yes, I have a story about that. But what were you doing? Copy editing?
Well, it would just be private stuff. I was at the. I was in Tokyo at the. I think my first experience at the Imperial Hotel. Like the most expensive place there.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to see it, and I'd read that a cup of coffee was $10 there, and that's the type of reporting I noticed is the reporter would take the most extreme thing and make it look like that's what Japan was like. In Japan, a cup of coffee is $10.
Oh, the reporting on Japan is so stupid.
Yeah, and so I went there, and I had a cup of coffee or something like that, and I hung out
for $10.
Yeah. I just went on and did it or something. Anyway, because I know I was there. Well, maybe I was there and somebody else bought it for me because a guy came up to me and said his client or something is got a paper in English that needs to be gone over, and he gave me 10,000 yen to spend an hour.
Oh my God.
So I got
like the bubble.
I got like $80 to spend an hour with somebody on something like that. And and this is the height of their economy. And then I went out and I asked the doorman, I said, I knew a little Japanese when I arrived. I could speak to people, when I arrived in Japan. Wow. This is early on when I was there. I asked the doorman, where can you get a cheap cup of coffee? I said, it's really expensive here. He said, yeah, just go down the street to where the train station is. That's the cheapest. And so I went around looking for cheaper cups of coffee. I have very cheap cups of coffee around there. It was just a little personal research. But then I helped a doctor with his, I don't know, some big paper he was doing and stuff like. And I worked on stuff for friends that was just. I had no idea what they were saying. I just couldn't understand. I didn't know where to start.
David, you're the only other person I know who I share that with. For a while, there was a guy we knew from New Haven who his business was getting a stable of copy editors to edit that kind of scientific paper. And I would be given them, and all you could do is look at the look at the grammatical level of the sentence. I had no idea what it was talking about, but I knew it had to have like a subject and a verb, so I could edit it. They were happy with what I did, but I didn't get no idea what they were. Yeah, it was all scientific. I know. So I did that too. And you got paid a lot too, right?
Yeah, insane. Insane. That was great.
I know. And I was working at a think tank, this public-private think tank that I got a job. It was the height of the bubble. And I would be they wanted me to sit there like 2 afternoons a week and just be there in case that they needed me to like edit a letter in English. Half the time I was doing editing on other jobs. So they were paying me an enormous amount of money to be there. I was working on other jobs at the same time. Yeah, so it was. Yeah,
I knew people that did that. I had a friend. In fact, I just saw him recently here. Our best friends from Kyoto they come here for a month every year and ship a container load of stuff back to Seattle to sell. And they're half time in Kyoto. And
they were doing that too.
And Jake was teaching 1 day a week to support himself. And Jay had a job with a company in Osaka where he'd go over there and he was sort of on call and he'd just read. He'd read detective novels and things, and every once in a while they'd want something. And when I first arrived, the guy that owned Videodroid in Mill Valley had sent me to look up Jay because he'd hired Jay to help him deal with a Japanese company. And I was hitchhiking at that point. I didn't have any money, speak of very little. Jay gave me a job for an afternoon in Osaka. I remember I was copy editing an advertisement for Kubota tractors. And I got maybe $300, $400 for.
Oh my God.
For
wait a minute, you said Kubota what? What's
Kubota
that?
tractors.
What was it? Oh, tractors. Oh.
Yeah. But I didn't do much of that. We started our own school.
What were
really.
you do? How long did you stay there?
4 years.
Japan. Wow. And what was your main thing? Were you at a temple as well?
Yeah. We lived next door to Sogenji in Okayama, and I sat there and would do sanzen with Shodo Harada Roshi, and incidentally, the Rinzai. If you look at what happened there, what happened at Bukokuji in Obama and Hoshinji in Obama. Bukokuji Harada, Tangen never gave anybody transmission, and Shoda Harada, I don't know if he's given some people permission to teach. Yeah. But the Rinzai ones like that, the level of becoming a Dharma teacher was higher than just but getting a temple. I never quite understood. Richard would know more about it than me because.
Why do you think Richard?
Now, when we said Richard, I said Richard. I should say your husband, Richard Jaffe, knows more about it than me.
Oh, well, it makes me think about Richard Baker didn't give anybody transmission
Well,
until
he gave rev transmission.
At the very end.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
and
right.
he was going to give Lou transmission, but
okay.
yeah, well.
But why do you, wait? I have a question for you. Why do you think? I mean, I can imagine very hurt feelings, blah blah blah. But why do you think he wouldn't stay at Zen Center? I mean, I think there was a path for him that he could have taken and stayed.
Yeah, there was.
Do you?
And I would come talk to him about it. I remember he said, God, why weren't you on the board? And I said, you didn't want me on the board. I just caused trouble.
Yeah.
when I was on the board, I'd go here. I'd pretend I had a rubber stamp. I go, right on, BR. But I liked his leadership in many ways. It was I found Zen Center to be a lot of fun. Even a lot of his detractors, so they had a great time.
He made us feel like we it was a movement and that we were doing something really important for our culture. And I think he was right. But why do you think he didn't want to stay?
Oh, because he had a certain way he wanted to do things. He has, he's a micromanager and he has vision and he was losing control. This happens a lot in institutions. There's a thing, a guy who was with Fairlawn, Sim Vanderen's Fairlawn Institute, finally got rid of Sim, who was the founder, as the head honcho of it. David Katz said Sim got founder's disease. But it's that there's the founders often are very dynamic, maybe charismatic people who have some vision or some idea of what the institution should do, and then the institution becomes successful and has strong people in it, and it moves into another form. It evolves, and the founder can't stay in it if they want to run it. Listen, I am not running Cuke Archives anymore. Although
you're not running. Wait, yeah.
I'm not running my own website and my own thing anymore.
Oh, really?
It's really Peter Ford is, but it doesn't. It's not something that's going to go into the infinite future. I don't know, but Peter Ford's the managing director of Cuke Archives, and we have constant contact. I'm on special projects. I'm trying to finish a book called Tassara Stories, and I was editing Suzuki's audio, which I've put on hold. I've put almost everything on hold now for that.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. So his name is Peter Ford?
Yeah. He would never at Zen Center. He was on the East Coast.
Yeah.
But
just wondered. You're still
he's really good. Huh?
Oh, yeah? You're still very involved, though.
Yeah, every day, multiple times.
Yeah.
I haven't done anything on Tassara Stories in 3 days, just trying to catch up with all the stuff I've been behind on.
Oh, wow. Okay. So your next book, though, is Tassara Stories.
Well, I don't know if it'll actually be a book. I don't, publishing is not what it used to be. So
you don't have a contract?
No.
For it at the moment.
No.
Okay,
I mean, Shambhala is interested, and Sam Burkholz put an editor over, but I've never showed him anything, and that was years ago. But we've done other things since then, and put the book of vignettes out. Zen is right now.
Are these the vignettes that you've gathered from talking to people, or are they all your own?
No.
Okay.
No, Zen is right here and Zen is right now are 2 books of vignettes about Shunryu Suzuki. that are my and other people's memories of key moments. You know, at Tassara in the city center, in lectures, in Doksan.
Right. With Suzuki Roshi. With Suzuki Roshi. Okay.
Yeah, entirely with Suzuki Roshi.
Yeah.
Zen is
good.
right here is, Zen is right here. Teaching stories and anecdotes of Shunryu Suzuki. And Zen is right now is more teaching stories and anecdotes. And Zen is right now came out in 2019. And I did an audio book for Crooked Cucumber and for Thank You and Okay.
Oh.
Because I had the audio visual rights, and Shambhala did both of them. And
good.
Yeah.
Good.
So
that's fantastic. Yeah.
I just think of work I want to get done. I don't think about the market, really.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. Yeah. So you did copy editing in Japan.
I did, and I had a baby, as I told you. I wrote an article about having a baby in Japan for the English language newspaper there.
I'm going to see it.
I could send to you.
Oh, definitely.
All right. I'll send it to you.
Definitely.
Yeah. And the baby was born at Aiku Byoin, Aiku Hospital. That's where we went. And let me see what else. I mean, yes. And so it was great having a baby there. You know, I really influenced her first 2 years, and being surrounded by Japanese people, Japanese families, and Japanese ways. And we were very close with another family that had 4 kids. Richard's one of his main research connections, and they've become very good friends over the years. Now they have kids, so that was a real in for us into a family. It was a temple family, and it was just wonderful. I can't possibly go and tell you so much about it, but I'll just tell you one little story. I knew enough Japanese to get in trouble, which is what Richard always said, and has a lot of funny stories about that. Ask me sometime about the stamp we had made, a return address stamp.
Oh, no, come on. Tell me now.
Oh, my God. Well, we had so many stories. It was funny. But this was, I went into a little neighborhood, it's like we lived in Sakura Shinmachi, which is just 4 stops out of Shinjuku, and it's like a little village. It was distinguished by all the sakura trees along the main shopping area. It was beautiful in the in the spring.
Cherry trees.
And we loved that neighborhood. And cherry trees. And so I went to a little tiny shop where they made stamps. They had stamps in the window. I went in and I wanted to have a return address stamp made. And our address had like 8 lines, 8 lines in it. But I said to them, please make sure, they didn't know English. So I said, please make sure to break it into lines, short lines, so that it would be like an American style address, not all run together. Because I saw them they had in the window English stamps as well as Japanese stamps. The English ones were done all wrong because it all ran together,
Yeah.
It didn't have, Elm Street, next line. It was like Elm Street, Sakura Shinmachi.
Yeah.
So I said, please, I kept saying in my best attempt, Japanese, because they didn't speak English, which was great. I was able to get along pretty well by the end, enough to get in trouble. And I said, please make sure to break it up. So when Richard went he was on his way home, and he went in, they said it's ready. He went in to pick it up, and he opened the bag, and they had made like 8 different stamps. Each one had a short line on it.
Oh, that is
He said there
funny.
must be a mistake. This is 8 stamps, not 1 stamp. And they said, that's what your wife wanted. She was very particular about it. So he convinced he convinced them to glue it all back onto one stamp, which always looked a little higgledy-piggledy, but it worked well. So that's a funny story.
Oh,
and my daughter, she was raised in Japan. Yeah, she was raised in Japan for 2 years, and she bowed, and she had two.
Wait a minute.
Actually, my daughter, Zena.
Oh, yeah.
Zena. And she had 2 babysitters because I was working at Kodansha a little bit, like 2 afternoons a week.
Mm-hmm. And
that was great because there was the best kaki fry restaurant around the corner, and a whole bunch of us Americans used to go when it was in season. We'd get these, fried oyster lunches. Oh my God. So anyway,
wow.
You know how it is. You have all of these memories. I mean, the whole food thing is a whole different thing to talk about. But Zena, my daughter, she was raised in Japan, right? So we walked along the shopping street, and there was this really quirky little like stone basin with water in it, like running water, and there was a koi, the fish, the goldfish in this. It was just on the street corner. And so she would look at it. She was like 1.5, and she'd say, she'd point to it and say, "Cook it, eat it."
Oh, that's funny.
Cook it, eat it. Because that's what you did with fish, right? It wasn't like, oh, what a cute little fish. Oh, she said, cook it, eat it.
Oh, that's so funny. Wow.
I know.
Oh.
So we lived in Japan. We came back when she was 2. I went right back to Yale University Press because my boss was my mentor, and he was great. And I wanted to be in acquisitions, where you actually work with authors and acquire the books. It's not copy editing. You can edit for them, but it's more like developmental editing,
Right.
And acquiring books. And then I moved to North Carolina 2 years later, and quickly got the job at UNC Press. And first I was doing contracts work, which I had done at Yale, but I told them I really wanted to move into acquisitions as soon as possible, and they were good to their word. And then 25 years later, I published so many books, and so I loved it. I love the work. And that's a whole big thing there.
Wow.
Which And now I'm retired. What? Go ahead.
No, go on.
Well, like I said, about a year ago, and I wanted to retire from that job, and that means I get a pension and Social Security. So I'm lucky I can retire. I don't take that for granted. My father could never retire. He didn't get too sick to work anymore. And but I wanted to retire while I still had a lot of energy to pursue many other interests, some which go, you take your former life and it's with you. And now I started doing yoga at San Francisco Zen Center back in '76, and now I'm very seriously doing it, hoping, and I've always done it ever since, but not very intensively, but I'd like to try to get certification as a Iyengar teacher, first level, and maybe teach. My ideal would be I'm not going to start a big school or anything, but I'd like to be able to teach small groups of people, particularly like seniors, and I'd also, if possible, would work in a prison if I could, doing
that's great.
beginning yoga.
That's great.
There are some programs that do that. I'd love to go back to Zen Center and do a practice period, which I know Linda Ruth and Leslie James, I think, would help me do. In fact, right before we left, I was asked to be Shuso at Tassajara, and like the practice period before we left, and I was going to do it, but Bob Lytle asked if he could do it, and he was senior to me. For some reason, he wasn't able to do it until that time, so I said, yes, let Bob do it first, and then I moved back east, so I never got to do it. But at 70, which I am, it's not like you can pop right back in doing sashimi maybe and all the sitting. I mean, I don't know what that would be like, but I hope to find out one of these days.
Yeah.
And I'm doing a lot of politics. That's the other thing, a lot of political work.
Oh, yeah?
North Carolina is so screwy, yeah.
Oh, yeah, very interesting state for politics.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think about climate change?
I love it. No. Oh, I think I think we're boiling ourselves, aren't we? Like a frog in boiling water, and I feel like that's why I want to do some politics, because that's the only level where things really change. And of course, there's a lot of wonderful groups that influence politicians, but to get something to happen, you have to have the right politicians in place, right?
Yeah.
Like if Al Gore had become president, maybe things would have been a little bit better. I don't know. So that's why I'm working at the kind of macro political level. I think that's where the most change can happen. And that's not fast. Oh my God. So why? What do you think about it?
Well, first, I'd like to say that the frog in water story is not true.
Oh, really?
No, it's just something that's repeated over and over. That
a
frog, if you put it in boiling water, of course, it'll just jump right out. But if you put it in water and then heat it slowly to boil, they just sit in it. I don't think that's true. But it's a good analogy. It is true with us, though, that we're not doing anything pretty much. And everything that's being proposed is not enough, I think.
I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I feel sad if younger people don't want to have kids because of that. You know what I mean? There's some people who say, why should I have a kid and bring it into this world? And I feel like that's so sad.
Well, I've felt that the human race was destroying itself since high school. When Kelly was old enough to, talk, and he was very conversational, starting at about 4, or 3 or 4. I told him, when he was, he was born in 1973. So when he was about 8, I was working on world suicide, and he was helping me put out leaflets to sell the record and stuff like that. And I told him he was brought into this world to be a warrior, to help prevent world suicide. But that he'd been brought into a world that was, it looked like it was trying to the human race was trying to destroy itself, but possibly in ways that would take a great deal with it.
Yes. So that gave him a sense of purpose, I guess, or meaning.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's. I'd say he is a great warrior. He's doing a good job.
That's great. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's true that young people. Yeah. I'm less concerned about whether they want to have kids or not. About that. Noam Chomsky says that mass movements, popular uprising of the masses, is what has made great changes. And I think that's what we have to have. But I'm waiting for it. trying to nudge it, but they
Well,
can't do
you're
much.
lucky. Yeah. I mean, the day-to-day with the politics is crazy. But, for example, so I work with the Democratic Party, sort of the progressive wing, but it's the only game in town, the two-party system, really.
That's right.
So I work, I always voted Democratic and registered, but I never identified, oh, I'm a proud Democrat. Not that I was ashamed of it, but now it's like, okay, I'm working with our local precinct, very grassroots, and we managed to overall the elections in the nation weren't too bad, I guess, compared to what they could have been, but North Carolina was horrible. So we just managed to throw out the entire leadership of the North Carolina Democratic Party, and we got a whole new slate of really good people who I know, some of them. And now we have the head of the Democratic Party here is a 25-year-old woman. She's the youngest head of a state party in the country, and she's in the progressive wing. And so, I mean, that kind of thing is like, okay, it's slow to change, but maybe this will do something. Anyway, blah, blah, blah.
Good luck to you. Good luck to you.
Thank you. I know. Thank you.
I'm rooting for you.
Thank you, dear. I'll let you know what happens.
Yeah.
I want to do my own creative work, my own writing and artwork. So those are some of the. Oh, and see my daughter more, I hope. She, go out to California more.
Truckee.
Do you get back?
Yeah.
To California at all? No.
I've never been back since I came here in 2013.
Oh my gosh! So,
my wife goes back.
Do you have family in Texas?
Huh?
Oh.
What?
Do you have family? Do you have any family in Texas?
The only relative I have left in Texas I know of is the governor.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Abbott?
Yeah, we're second cousins.
No way.
Yeah. My mother knew him, and he didn't know,
Greg
but Mother
Abbott?
always voted Democratic. And she'd say, David says hello, and he'd say, isn't he a Democrat?
Yeah, that's the least of it.
I remember his mother.
He
was younger, I remember his mother. I liked his mother a lot, but I never really knew him.
Okay, all right. Well, that's something.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah. And are you enjoying your time in? I mean, does Bali feel like home to you, or what's your thing?
Well, I don't think about that. Let's see. We when we got hold of a little money, and the rent in our home we could buy, it's all going up. We locked it in really low till almost 2031.
Wow.
And, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you get to see Kelly and your
Yeah,
other
he's been here
kid
twice.
Clay?
He's been here twice. We're
nice.
in constant contact. And Kelly and Clay. And Clay has 2 daughters, and we're in constant contact with them. We use Marco Polo mainly. WhatsApp.
Oh yeah, somebody
WhatsApp,
told me about that. Just the other day.
Oh, Marco Polo is great. Look, you may they call it video walkie-talkie. You make you make some message on your video, and you can be pointing at you or pointing at whatever's in front of you, and then you send it, and then they watch it and listen to it when they have time, and send you back something when they feel like it. And it's much better than having to be together at the same time, which tends to drag on.
Yeah.
It's much more efficient.
Yeah.
I find it makes communication more efficient, and we have more communication.
Oh, wow. Is that a free app?
Yeah.
It's an app?
Yeah, but I have the paid version, which is a little, it's a little more convenient. It's not very expensive.
How long can the videos be?
Any length.
As long as you want.
Yeah, but that's not good. You want to keep them short. We try to keep them to 5 minutes. If you don't, Kelly, what I'll do is I'll if Kelly sends along or Clay sends a long one, I'll listen to it as long as I can, and I'll stop and I'll get back to it later.
Cool. Yeah. And I should suggest that to my daughter.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that.
Tell her to get Marco Polo. Yeah. It really works well.
Yeah.
It took months for Kelly to get me to do it. And then once I did it, it just caught on.
You're the second person in 3 days who told me about it. I'm definitely going to look into it.
Yeah.
My daughter Zena is getting married in a year from now. So we are really happy about that. We like him. He's great. And she was in Bali. Did we ever tell you that? She did a semester in Bali.
When?
Zena, this was about 10 years ago. So.
We came here. It'll be 10 years in December.
Okay, yeah, it was a little before that. So,
yeah.
She told us about these lizards that would be on the wall. Gray.
Oh, they're wonderful. Chachak.
Yeah.
Chachak are just the greatest thing in the world. Oh yeah, they're.
Oh my God.
Chachak are like a blessing in a home.
Nice.
Oh yeah, they're very, very, very small, and they hide. But we see them. I could probably.
Chachak.
Chachak. C-A-C-A-K. They're great. I saw an ad on Instagram for something that attracts chachak and poisons them, kills them, I just wrote, this is truly evil. These are chachaks are blessings. They purify a home. They guard the home from evil spirits.
Aww.
It's terrible.
I'm going to tell Zena that. I'm going to tell her that.
Yeah, they're wonderful. We have our housekeeper clean the chachak poop off the walls. It very little, maybe once a month, just go around, get the little dark spots on. But it's fun. We'll be eating dinner, and there's, we'll get to know one that's behind the picture that's right by the dinner table. It'll come down, and the table hits the wall, and it's looking for anything we might drop that could be something it could eat, and we'll leave little tiny crumbs or something, and see if they're there the next day.
Wow.
And we'll notice them when they're pregnant. They do hide, but the ones there behind that picture are they know us. So sometimes they'll come out and they'll sort of look at us or something.
Oh my gosh! How long are they? How big?
Well, they go from anywhere from half an inch to, that would be a baby, to maybe a big one. I don't know if I've ever seen one that's 4 inches. More like 2, 3 inches, 3 inches maybe. 3, that's pretty big. 2, 3 inches. And they can, they can be on the ceiling. They're wonderful. Yeah. They're wonderful. I love them. Okay. Now, gecko are neat. And we have gecko around here some. And gecko make a gecko can get really big. They can get, 2 feet stuff. And they can be extremely loud in their call. But the gecko around here, we don't have real big ones like that. They're sort of, I really enjoy hearing them. You can Google it and say, listen to a gecko, and you can hear different types of gecko.
Okay.
Online. I cannot.
David, how often do you go to Germany? Do you go
I went
there
there
to,
one time
practice?
from here. That's the only time I've left Asia.
Okay. Are there any Buddhist practice centers where you are in Bali?
Well, I've done
really.
Vipassana retreats here with Myanmar monks.
Okay.
But I was there was a really interesting one. I signed up for a 10-day retreat. No, it was actually be 11 days in April. And I was rejected because I'm too old.
Oh, my God.
And anyway, I just turned 78. So I thought there's another type of retreat here that's easier. And I'm close with the teacher, and he studied Vipassana, but he's a Chinese Balinese, and he teaches healing, which is nice. It's just just breath work, and I like him. But mainly I just sit at home. I'm not really overly interested in doing anything more than that. I like doing that. And
nice. And you're steeped in Suzuki Roshi stories. You're always pondering the stories about Suzuki Roshi.
No, I don't ponder it. I don't think about it. Really, I just preserve it.
Write them down.
I preserve it for others.
Okay. All right.
I really don't think about it. I don't think about Buddhism.
See that because okay. Because I mean, there's a little bit of a danger, and I'm just riffing here, but people will think, oh, these are really important Zen stories, but are they? I don't know.
Well, it depends on how things are presented. That's not the nature. That's not the vibe he put out, or that's come from him.
I never met him.
Yeah, his trip was more just be yourself, and like somebody, one of the vignettes is somebody said to him, I think it was Beverly Horowitz, said, Rochi, when I'm not sure what to do, I don't know what to do about something, I think, what would Roshi do? Is that a good approach? And he said, well, when I don't know what to do, should I say that? Should I say, what would Roshi do?
No, he should say, what would Beverly do? Oh, my God. Well, that's great.
Yeah, she understood right away when he said that.
Forward. Okay. I really look forward to reading those. And I know you've got some of that up, right, on Cuke.com now?
Everything's there.
Stories, or?
Everything's there.
Oh, okay, good.
Also, good. I created a second edition of Crooked Cucumber with a number of corrections and updates. Now, the publisher is what? Penguin Random House. They it doesn't sell enough for them to publish it, but the audio book is second edition, and you can see all the changes for the second edition on Cuke.com. I think I'll just put the whole book back on. I took it off. We had the first edition and second edition where you could go from one to the other. I think I'll.
Is it out of? Are they not selling? Is Random House not selling it anymore?
Oh no, it's still available.
But they don't care if you. They don't mind if you put it up on your the whole book.
They
up on the
don't
website?
know. They don't. Are you kidding?
Oh, you're one of those.
I never pay any attention to that stuff.
That's definitely probably against your. Wait, was your contract with Penguin Random House for the book?
Yeah, it wasn't Penguin Random House at that time. It was Broadway, which was under under another publisher, which was under Random House, which was under Bertelsmann in Germany.
Right. Well, congratulations, because you certainly had one of the biggest publishers around. Yeah,
that was, but that came out in 1998 1999. And that supported me and Elaine and and for 10 years, for the 10 years leading up to it.
Nice.
And
wow.
But
okay. Gotcha.
Get little time, but publishing now for me is mainly pro bono work for Shambhala. And I get crumbs thrown to me occasionally. We get by on donations.
Oh my God! Yeah. And Michael Katz was your agent for the Cuke, right?
He's what I call my co-conspirator.
Okay. Because we visited him. I think, did Richard tell you? We saw him in Nevada City last time we were visiting Zena and Truckee just a few months ago.
Oh, wonderful. So I did hear about that.
We went over there. You did?
Well, I heard about it. I can't remember now from whom or what.
Well, all right. Well, I think we had a very good overview. Thanks. I mean, my God, went through quite a bit. Not everything.
Yeah.
The broad outlines.
Yeah, it was great. You had some really neat things to say. And I really appreciate you saying that you learned to say thank you at Zen Center.
Okay. Good.
That was neat.
True.
Yeah. Well, been wonderful speaking with you. Tell Richard Lowe, tell him I'd like to do another one with him. I think.
Yeah. Okay.
He was one of my very early ones, and I had specific idea of what to talk about with him. I'd like to do more general thing with him, like you and I just did.
Yeah, and I mentioned it, and he said, "Oh, that would be great." And he said you're really fun to talk with. So
yeah. He's fun to talk with.
He enjoyed the experience.
I always liked him a lot.
He just got a nice grant for his next book. That he can take a year off at the National Humanities Center to work on the biography of D.T. Suzuki.
Wow.
So he's very happy right now. Yeah. But we'll tell you more about that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, wonderful speaking with you.
Yeah, really nice. You know how it is at Zen Center, I found, we were very close in some ways, but in a lot of ways we didn't know that much about each other's lives, I think. At least that's how some people we got to know pretty well, but we lived with people, but I didn't know so much about their lives, their past lives. So there's a lot to learn when I talk to people. Well, you're doing incredible work, and it's just going to get more and more and more important as time goes on. So I hope you know that. I'm sure you do. And keep it going. It's really needed.
Well, I can say with a certain amount of confidence that I think it will continue at least through today. I call archiving preserving things a little bit longer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to think about that and let the conversation we had resonate. And I appreciate it very much. Thank you, David.
Thank you. This was fun. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Hopefully see you one of these days.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. So thanks a lot, Elaine Maisner. Thanks for sharing all that. It was most interesting. And it'd be interesting to see what you do in retirement. I don't think you're going to lay back and snooze. So maybe we'll revisit you again sometime in the future. So this has been a Cuke Audio Podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from sleepy Sonora with Doghead Bandita and dear lovely Katrinka. And we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.